Kalimera, kalispera, kalinichta. No matter where in this wild, wacky, and wonderful world you might be, thank you for making the Highbury Squad part of your day. It's a new week. It's a blank canvas. Let's paint pictures. Let's tell stories. Don't say I don't do nice things for you. Not one, but two legends in the house tonight. Let's rock and roll. Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad. What a wonderful picture that is. And welcome back, squaddies. It's Monday. We're coming off a massive game at Anfield, and I couldn't think of two better legends to discuss it with. Back in the house, my podcast brother from another mother, Mr. Super Kevin Campbell.
Squaddies, I hope you have digested yesterday. And I'm sure we're going to chop it up with this legend down below. So, at ease.
If you've been living under a football rock and you don't know who this young fella is down there, Liverpool legend, ESPN analyst, and all-round epic human being, Mr. Stevie Nicol, back in Squad Central, folks.
Hey, Sophie, is your lecky been cut off? What's the jacket and the hat? All you need is a scarf.
It's a bit of Plymouth. It's a bit of Plymouth, Steve.
Okay, so Stevie, I have an explanation for it, and it's pathetic. I'm going to admit it out loud. I have to keep this hat on until we lose. There. You must have had superstitions like that when you played for your great Liverpool side.
So when you say you got to keep it on, you mean 24/7 or just what's the deal?
If I wear a hat and I'm doing the show, if I wear it has to be this hat now. That's the agreement with the insane listeners of this show.
Right. Yeah. No.
What did you used to do?
You know, so many at different times. Just something would happen. You go, "Oh, I need to remember to do that," and then you would do it, and then you'd forget about it, and then 3 weeks later, having won 3 games in a trot without doing it, you realise what a lot of nonsense it is. But hey, you fire away. You keep going.
After yesterday, Stevie, I will keep going. There's no doubt about that. All right. Good evening, everyone. All the usual suspects in the house. Trev and Guna Russ is here, and Jen's here, and Taib's here, and everyone's here. Lynn's here. Chief Like Officer. Everyone is here. Right. Before we get stuck in, I wanted to talk about playing at Anfield first before we get stuck into the nuts and bolts of the game. Kevin knows what it's like to play at Anfield. And Stevie, of course, extra knows what it's like to play at Anfield. Not the easiest place in the world, especially for Arsenal Football Club. And no matter what Liverpool team is playing in the season, when you go to Anfield, it's totally different. Things like this can happen, boys, when you go to Anfield. There's that flying number 9 there. And then these things can happen when you go to Anfield. Stuff like this. Kev, you know what it's like, having played for Arsenal and, of course, Everton. Look at Steven Gerrard coming in for you there like Bruce Lee. What is going on? Playing at Anfield, not easy.
No, it's not easy. And I really want to speak to Stevie about this, obviously, after. But the crowd are always in the game. And they can make a huge difference to Liverpool as a team. They can make a difference to the opposition. They can make a difference to the referees, but most of all, they can make a difference to the team who's playing. And when they get behind the team, like they 99% of the time do, it is probably the toughest place to go and get a result. I've seen it since I was a boy. Teams going up there and getting nothing. Liverpool not even losing games at Anfield for years, etc. So even though Liverpool are not doing so well, I was not fooled by what happened last week and in the week. By the Man City and Chelsea game, I knew, listen, this game was going to be as tough a game as we will get away from home, and it proved it.
Definitely. Stevie, what do you think of, and the reason why I started with this is there's a lot of narrative today about it's in City's hands now. Arsenal have collapsed at Anfield. The usual kind of dartboard stuff that we've come to know as Gunners fans.
Sometimes called nonsense, you mean?
Talk to me about, was I disappointed at the beginning? I thought, man, we've just dropped 2 points, but we don't get points at Anfield. Talk me through a little bit about playing at Anfield and what it meant for us to walk away with a point yesterday.
You know, I was asked this the other day about what is it about Anfield that makes things happen. And the most recent one is against you guys. You know, at 2-0, the game was dead and buried. And by the end of the game, you're hanging on and you're probably lucky that you get that point. And I've probably played, I don't know, I played nearly 500 games at Anfield. So probably about 300 of them would be at home.
Wow.
And I couldn't tell you what it is, but it's there. It's something that rears its head 9 times out of 10 when it's needed, but it's generally, there's something there all the time. And I couldn't tell you what it is. I have absolutely no idea, because, as I said, having stepped on that field 300 times and having felt it, and I guess that's why you can't put your finger on it, because it's a feeling that the place gives you, the atmosphere, the crowd, the night, the dark, the floodlights, everything just seems to come together, and it does something to you as a Liverpool player. But to put your finger on it and tell anybody and try and explain it is absolutely impossible, because nobody knows what it is. It's just been there forever, and it will continue to be there. There's certainly what we saw on Sunday shows you that there's no sign of that little bit of magic that comes generally when it's needed of ever disappearing. So as far as that's concerned, I have no idea. As far as this rhetoric about it's now in City's hands, as far as I'm aware, it's about points. And if you've got the points, you will take that every day of the week. So I absolutely don't get this. You know, it's in Arsenal's hands. It's not in City's hands. If Arsenal get a point the way they did at Anfield at the weekend, then they're favourites. They're still favourites, I should say. So I don't go along with that. And I certainly don't go along with the other nonsense about Arsenal collapsed. Arsenal didn't collapse. What we saw in the second half from Liverpool was the Liverpool that we thought they were. The Liverpool that's been there for the last 3 or 4 years, winning Champions League, winning the Premier League, consistently at an incredible level that regardless of the opposition, they can't handle it. And that's what happened to Arsenal. I don't think Arsenal collapsed. I just think Liverpool showed us what they're capable of when they're at their best. And in my opinion, regardless of the opposition, the way Liverpool went about that second half, the way they closed the ball down, the way they created chances, the pressure they put on, I mean, just the desire and the will and the atmosphere and everything else. I don't care who they were playing against. They would have come out on top in that second half. Because they came out on top. They won 2-0 the second half. No, it could have been more, but for
you had 1-0, Stevie. Come on, 1-0.
I forgot about the goal before half time.
But Stevie, can I just say this, and you could take it from here?
Sure.
When Liverpool attacked the Kop in the second half as well,
totally
that
different.
tends to have an effect of wave after wave after wave of attack, and the opposition, as good as Arsenal were in the first half, just couldn't get out.
No. And again, some would say that your passing wasn't as good. I know Arteta came out and said, you know, our passing wasn't as good at the start of the second as it could have been. But again, you know, if you're being pressed that hard and the opposition are jumping on the slightest little mistake, I mean, yes, you lost the ball, but I don't remember somebody standing on it or just completely having a donkey touch or anything like that. It was generally, there was somebody all over the back of whoever it was in an Arsenal jersey was getting was getting pressured, and then the ball was getting stolen away, or just that an Arsenal player was getting outnumbered.
Yeah.
You know, so it wasn't like Arsenal played like donkeys the second half. They didn't. They just got put in a position by Liverpool, and they couldn't get out.
Yeah.
And that's what Liverpool and good teams can do to you.
Yeah, and this is a Liverpool team that spanked Manchester United 7-0. Yet Manchester United fans having a laugh at us today. Note to them. And, you know, gave Manchester City a game. And with those two, the City 1-0, the Manchester United 7-0. And by the way, when you were talking about atmospheres, you took me back to Highbury for a little bit there, Stevie, because we feel the same. And the Emirates has definitely changed this season, and we've amped it up a totally different level. But when you're looking at what was I saying before that, Kev? What was I just saying? I just went to Highbury. I kept thinking about all the.
No, you were on about at Anfield. Why teams can't get out? Why is it?
So the second half, is that your best performance this season?
No, I think when you beat Arsenal, when you beat United at home by that score, you can't beat it. But I would say it's probably next to that. Yes, for a complete half, yes. I mean, from the start to the finish of that half, in my opinion, it was just an onslaught. It was, you know, it was one of those situations when you play against teams that are doing that, it feels, you know, against the great Liverpool sides, against Fergie's great Man United sides, against your Arsenal, some of your Arsenal teams, when they play like that and when they have the bit between their teeth like that, it feels as though they've got more than 11 players. Because everywhere you turn, there's another, whatever colour of jersey it is. And so it just feels as though you're getting suffocated by numbers, which it's not. They just happen to be, I don't know, the adrenaline, all of those things just at one time. And then you add the ability on, because you can't do that. You can't do what Liverpool did the second half to Arsenal unless they have ability, because Arsenal's got ability from the back to the middle to the front, and so to dominate a side like Arsenal, yes, you have to be able to run and close the ball down and do all the dirty stuff, but you also have to have the ability, and we saw in the second half the ability that Liverpool have, which unfortunately for you, generally we haven't seen this season, but they produced it in that second half.
So
Stevie,
go on, Kev.
Sophie, I also want to say to ask Stevie, we also saw an array of attacking weapons that Jurgen Klopp has at his disposal. He can bring on Nunes. He can bring on Firmino. He can go four up top, can't he? And that really is going to cause you massive problems, because everyone has different skill sets up there.
Yeah, I think, and again, I don't think that's a surprise to any Liverpool fan, to be honest with you. But the truth is that front line, the previous front line, you know, of Mane, Salah, and Firmino, it was getting fed constantly, particularly from the middle of the park. The middle of the park was closing the ball down and feeding those front three, and that's why we saw so many goals from Liverpool at their best. I don't think the front three they can put on the field is some would argue it's not as good, but it's not kicking the backside off it. But they're not getting the amount of ball in the areas that they did previously, and so it just again so happened that in that second half in particular, the middle of the park actually did the job that we thought it was going to be. That unfortunately we haven't seen. It did its job for that period of time, which unfortunately has been missing for most of the season.
It's incredible how the midfield showed up in that second half. Okay, so when we talk about your attacking threat, how we manage the game is where I really want to talk to you and Super Kev about, because when I asked Kev about it hot off the game yesterday, he felt like Mikel Arteta handled the subs well. A lot of Arsenal fans feel like he didn't. And it's probably the first time in a long time a few Arsenal fans feel that Mikel Arteta maybe got it a little bit wrong. From the insider perspective, Stevie, some of the things that came up were how do you throw on a player like Kivior, who hasn't played in this intensity at this level, and you saw him in the Europa League when he was matched with a defender he hadn't played with for a while? Why throw him in? Why didn't Zinchenko get subbed earlier for Tierney to add a little bit more of that defensive prowess? Xhaka looked like he was having one of those games, and Odegaard went missing when you really want him to be on the ball in the second half. What did you make of Mikel Arteta's subs, the timing of them? Your thoughts?
Well, the first one, what was his name? Kivior.
Kivior, yeah. Our new signing.
You're under absolutely incredible pressure, and you put on another defender. How can that be construed as a mistake when you're ahead? I don't get that. That doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, what are you going to put a forward on?
I don't think it's choosing a defender. It's the defender you chose or the player you chose.
Well, you don't have who else would you play?
Well, he would have had to do some major shifting because with Saliba's injury and Holding already playing, you had Ben White at right back.
So rather than that's the thing, well, you can do this, but if you move Ben White, then that means you're changing half your back four already. When you're playing in a game, particularly a game like that, you don't want to make too many. You don't want to shuffle things too much, because then it takes everybody time to settle in. When you come on in a game, particularly the pace that game was going, it takes you 5 minutes to get your breath. I don't care how long you warm up for. It takes you 5 minutes to get your breath. So if you want to throw somebody or a couple of players on who are not ready for the pace of the game, plus you're going to reshuffle your whole back line or whatever it is, to me, that's a gamble. Making one change and putting a defender on for to have more players at the back makes just common sense. And the thing about bringing Tierney on earlier, Tierney should have had a penalty against him. Mo Salah's volley with his right foot when he's in the air is only because Tierney's pulling him back. In my opinion, that was a penalty kick. So you brought on Tierney, so you can't complain about him. If you brought Tierney on, maybe they gives a penalty away earlier. So Tierney didn't cover himself in glory because he could have given the penalty away.
Well, he could have played at centre back maybe instead of Kivior, but yeah, I hear you.
I mean, you're in a position that he's in. It's the way the rules of the game now, and the way the game's refereed, and the way the game's played. It's very difficult to change the flow of the game the way it was going, because you can't kick people anymore.
Yeah,
you can't. You can't do all these things. You can't waste time anymore. You can't. There's so many things you can't do anymore. To change a game is very, very difficult these days.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're playing against a team that's got the bit between their teeth, the way Liverpool have, and the way the game was going, and the whole mindset, when you're ahead, you're not going to try and keep going forward. You're going to try and hold on to what you have. So to put another defender in the mix makes complete sense to me, because you ain't playing your way out of that situation. I don't believe. I just don't believe the way the game was and the rhythm of the game and the way that Liverpool are on top. You're not playing your way out of it. You're keeping strong and making good, solid defensive decisions and challenges. That to me was the only way that they were going to get through it, and they almost did. They almost did.
We almost. Well, yeah. I want to talk to you about shifting back to the atmosphere a little bit, because Kev, some of the Monday morning quarterback comments and sound bites are that we woke up Anfield and Xhaka woke up Anfield, because Anfield needs waking up at that point in the match. What's your take on, I don't like this scapegoating of Xhaka, of Holding. Yes, we can criticize, and I was critical of Holding yesterday because I thought he put himself in a clumsy situation. He was a bit clumsy. But scapegoating Xhaka like it's his fault that he woke up Anfield. Now this to me is bloody nonsense, as Steve said at the start of the show.
I'm very sorry. I'm going to have to disagree with you.
Oh.
I agree that he shouldn't be made a scapegoat. I don't believe in taking it that far. But when I was 19, the very first time I ever played in Europe, away from home with Liverpool, well, I wasn't even playing. I was 13th man. And the last thing that was said, and I remember I've got Joe Fagan in my head right now. The last thing he said was, "Don't do anything to get the crowd into the game. You kill the game off and you keep it dead, and do not do anything to bring the crowd into the game." Now that is professional common sense. All this new nonsense that people talk about. There are certain things in football that were around 100 years ago and are still around today. And what's happened with Xhaka is proof of that. Because if he hadn't have riled the crowd up, maybe we're not having this conversation. Because 2 seconds previous to that, Liverpool gave the ball away again, and there was moans. You could hear the moans and the groans. And then 2 minutes later, we have this little fracas, and all of a sudden the game changed. The atmosphere in the game changed. So if somebody can come up with another reason why it all of a sudden changed, please let me know. But as I said, I've still got Joe Fagan and Ronnie Moran in my head. Don't you dare do anything to wake this crowd up.
Yeah, but they would say that to you, Stevie. They wouldn't say that to Graham Souness. Because Graham Souness...
Because he already knew. Because he already knew, that's why.
No, but he would... Hey, but there's times where he would have to do something like that to maybe stop the opposition. And just to slow the opposition down. Because you can't always go that way. The fact of the matter is... Hold on, Steve. The fact of the matter is, 2 players coming together and having a fracas is nothing new. It's not new at Anfield. This happens all the time. The problem is, it gets used as an excuse against Xhaka, riling up the Liverpool crowd. Listen, the Liverpool crowd are their crowd anyway.
Totally disagree.
Well, you couldn't disagree.
I totally disagree. Kevin, I absolutely...
But
I absolutely
totally disagree with Stevie. That was no relation to the goal. If you remember,
we're not talking about the goal, though, Super Kev. We're talking about the crowd.
We're talking about the crowd.
No, but what I'm saying is, Xhaka's getting blamed, saying that he's riled up the crowd, and that's what made them then score. That's why they're accusing him. That's what the accusation is.
So hold on a second. Let me play devil's advocate.
The accusation, I mean, to turn around and say, well, that's why they scored. That's not true. Liverpool could have played the way they did and not taken any chances, and you would still have won 2-0. The point is that you've riled everybody up, and so the percentages, the chances of Liverpool creating and scoring goals because of this surge of energy and adrenaline and the crowd and everything else is what changes it. You can't turn around and say, well, it's Xhaka's fault for the goal. You can't say that.
But that's what they are saying.
But what you can't deny is that right from that little fracas, Liverpool stepped it up emotionally.
They did. They did.
Emotionally. Which changes everything.
Here's the point that everybody seems to have forgotten. If you remember, Salah had one where he went through, misplaced his kick, and Robertson got him down the left.
Yeah.
Clean through. So it's not just because the crowd were up where Liverpool were getting in. As bad as Liverpool were playing, they were still creating something.
Kev, they created those 2 things, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for 40 minutes, you completely outplayed us.
Yes.
But I think
we outplayed you for 40 minutes.
I don't think you're giving enough credit to the emotion that Liverpool all of a sudden were playing with, because it wasn't really there. It started from there. That's the important point.
I think it started from the goal.
Kev, the same thing happened when Arteta got all crazy on the sideline in the League Cup. Was it the League Cup game? And they went at it with Klopp and the crowd got in it. And before you knew it, bosh, we were over. It was done. My point is this, as a fan, I'm going to come to you 2 legends as a fan, right? Because a few of our listeners have put it in the chat as well. When Vieira used to get stuck in it with Keane, we loved it. And it got us going. And that is it. It does, and it's true.
But my point is, did it stop Keane getting involved? No.
But the point is
the point is that it gets the
crowd now
doing it with Keane. Keane weren't backing down.
No, but that's not the point.
Let me ask you a question then. Let me put it a different way. Were the crowd in it before Xhaka and Trent Alexander-Arnold went at it?
The crowd had got quieted by Arsenal's good play, 100%.
Correct. 100% correct.
But the crowd were with Liverpool.
But what were the crowd? Well, if you look back
at Liverpool, and then they got quieted. But Steve,
right, and then what woke them up?
Yeah, but Steve, here's my point. You talk about woke them up. You're going to get that at Anfield. We're not talking about any other ground. We're talking about Anfield. Something is going to get those Liverpool fans
when you take the Anfield, out of the game.
Hold on a second. Yes. He just said it. He just said something is going to get the crowd on the home team's side.
Yes.
And that's the argument we're making. It was Xhaka that got the crowd on the home team side.
Yeah, but Steve, the point is, Xhaka is getting blamed for Liverpool equalising and coming back, and it's not his fault.
Okay, so here's what's happening
here.
Is that we're talking about two different things.
Hold on, let's forget the goal, Kev. Let's forget the goal, right?
Yeah, forget the goal. Did the crowd
you can't really argue. You can't really argue that from that point, Liverpool's crowd got in the game.
No, that's what I'm saying. They got in the game, but that wasn't the reason why Arsenal conceded.
No, but that's not the point of this question. Was not that. The point is Liverpool's crowd did get back in the game, and the question was, was he the nucleus for that? And the answer from most Arsenal fans is yes. Where I draw the line is he should not be made a scapegoat as to why we didn't walk away with a win or anything like that.
Point. Well,
but that's your point on that. The point is he did instigate he did ignite the crowd. It happens.
But it's gonna happen. It's football.
But you're not admitting that. You're defending.
It was him that did it, though.
What I said was, that happens in every game of football. Something will get the crowd going, but it's not the reason why they scored.
Stevie, last point on this one. Do you have one to make?
No, I think I made it pretty clear.
All right, the crowd, everything kicked in. Now let's talk about two major moments of the game. Stevie, were you ready to bet the mortgage on Mo Salah scoring that penalty? And was it a penalty?
Yeah, it's a penalty. It's clumsy, but it's a penalty kick. Listen, if it's the other way around, there's no way you're saying it's not a penalty. I mean, it's clumsy, but it's a penalty kick. And the truth is, I think the last penalty he took, this one might have been closer than the last one, because the one he took at Bournemouth, from the minute he hit it, it was never going in. And I can honestly say, listen, you know what it's like. Whenever you get a penalty kick, you're always going, oh no, I hope we don't miss it. Because we're all the same. And if it's the other way around, you know they're going to score. You know, that's how we are as fans. But I'm sitting going, and then I'm thinking about, well, this is a guy that scored a penalty in the Champions League final after like 2 minutes, and this is a guy who's done this and done that. But there's always that little doubt in your head. And then he misses it. It never at any stage looked as though it was in. So I mean, he's a guy who takes penalties. Absolutely. If somebody called me up and said, who do you want to take this penalty quickly so we can let them know, I would have said Salah. But I mean, I wasn't 100% behind him just because of the one he took at Bournemouth. So yeah, that was a surprise when he missed 100%.
Yeah. And I'm not going to talk about Rob Holding. We talked about him on our show yesterday. But I think
here's the thing, by the way, I think it's a little harsh. You know, Rob Holding is a player that somebody like Arsenal and other teams need. You know, you need a guy who's bought into everything that you're doing at the club, who's maybe not good enough to be the starter, but who's good enough that he can fill in if you need to give somebody a rest, or if somebody's injured, you can get a couple of games out of them. So I think you've got to remember that when you're talking about Holding. You know, I think I don't listen. I don't know whether he's been getting criticised or not, but
he has by some Arsenal fans. But what we said on the show is, if Xhaka can turn it around and play well, why can't Holding turn it around and play well and be given the same grace? I think it's because it's happening at the same time of the season, you guys, and he's coming and stepping in, and we're having to rely on him. And a lot of Arsenal fans are worried about that because Saliba has been so great from the fan perspective.
Well, regardless of whether it was Holding or anybody else, they're always going to be judged by Saliba. So that ain't going to happen because he's been outstanding. So you've got to remember that Holding's a guy who's there to be part of the squad, which is needed. Because you can't exactly. You can't have 5 Beckenbauers in your team because you can only play 2 of them. Yeah. So you got to remember that he's stepping in to help out. You can't expect Holding to be Saliba. And if you are, then you're in cuckoo land.
Yeah, I think what we fans tend to forget in these moments, because we so desperately want to win, is that Holding's been training with the team the whole season. Arteta prepares all the players for these moments. I mean, I don't need to tell you guys that. Sometimes as fans, we forget, especially because our starting 11 has been so brilliant. And Rob Holding's been nothing but a pro since he's joined the club in 2016. He's a popular player at the club. He's a leader in the dressing room. He's a good boy, good lad. And my God, the most amazing hair job that we've ever seen in football. It's incredible. Yeah. Let's talk about one of the biggest stories then, guys. And Kev, I don't know if you've had time to... Have you stopped looking at these saves yet? Jordan Jarrett Bryan, our friend of the show, was on last week saying this save was average, but this one was definitely a worldie. Ramsdale saves the day. Kev says that may have saved us, you know, from losing the Premier League title. 38 games. Does it come down to a moment like this, though, Kev? Now, a day later, what a save.
It's an incredible save. And look, it's sometimes you got to look at the way the game is going as well. You know, we were 2-0 up. Liverpool pegged us back. Liverpool got back into it. Liverpool missed a penalty. Liverpool were all over us. We made adjustments. We were trying to see the game out. And Liverpool are stretching us. They're putting us under massive pressure. And 2 great opportunities arise. One from Salah that gets deflected, going in the top corner, and Ramsdale pulls off a save like that. Let me tell you something. If you go into Anfield and you don't win, the key is if you can get out there with a draw, take your point and run. Take your point and run, because not many teams go to Anfield and get anything, no matter how good or bad they are. Trust me, that is such a difficult place to go. We got the point. And if it weren't for Ramsdale producing those 2 saves right at the end, he pulled off one from Nunes as well, where he came out and he saved it. So he'd done 3 big saves in the second half. One, for me, that one where he tipped it over the bar was world class. If it ain't for that, we lose the game. So they say a goalkeeper tends to save you points during the season. Well, he's gained us a point yesterday.
Stevie, you look at this, 94 minutes and 32 seconds on the clock. It's 2-2. It was a deflection as well, and he had to save it from a deflection. What did you do in that moment? Because Kev, watching it, stood up and applauded Ramsdale for that save. What did you do? How did you react when he saved that?
I swore.
I bet you didn't applaud.
There was 3 words. There was 3 words to it. Put it that way. But what a save! I mean, listen, the one in the top corner is absolutely spectacular, but the one he saves from Konate doesn't look as spectacular. But the mentality to just never give up on anything is what makes the save. That's about the mentality of a player. Mm-hmm. You know, you see goals week in and week out when you see all the highlights, and you'll see defenders who, when the opposition player's about to shoot, they're actually pulling the brakes on and stopping. You can't do that because you don't know what's going to happen. And if Ramsdale had pulled his brakes on and just stopped, then the ball's in the back of the net. But he doesn't do that because his mentality is, this thing's not in until it's in. and he just does what he does naturally. As natural as he tipped that thing over the top in the top hand corner, is as naturally how he went back and never gave up on something that looked like a lost cause. You know, Kevin will tell you about lost causes. Playing centre forward for Everton, you got to chase a lot of lost causes, right? Right, Kev?
Big time. Big time. Jeez.
But it shows you what people are made of, that chase lost causes and something comes from it. And that's what that was. That was a complete lost cause. And he turned around and actually got the point from a lost cause for his team. I mean, Ramsdale's been great though. And again, we shouldn't forget, there's a reason why you're top of the league. Because you've got good players, you've got people in positions that are actually world class. Yeah. Listen, Ramsdale could play and goal for any team on the planet. No danger. Just as Saka could play for any team on the planet. I thought he was pretty quiet myself in this game, but he's been outstanding. You know, you've got players from, again, back middle to front who have been outstanding. So the reason you win games and the reason you pick up points is because you've got ability and tremendous characters with a great mentality. You get those three things, that's why you're top of the league.
Steve, here's a question for you. You know, during a season, a title-winning season, you have to overcome certain hurdles. And when you go to the big teams, that's when you get your title credentials rubber stamped. It's either you can do it or you can't. What does that performance at Anfield tell you yesterday?
Well, we've basically, I certainly know I've been lauding Arsenal for pretty football. But regardless of whether you can say anything about, well, they didn't have the ball and they didn't have this and they didn't have that, they got a point against a team that was mauling them. So, so from being mauled, you end up bringing something that tells you about at the very least the character, and that's what you need. You need everything. Mm-hmm. It's dead easy when you're winning 3-4-0 to keep running and all of these things. But you know, when you're up against it, it's not quite as easy to show what you're made of. And so, every single team that's ever won the league will tell you that there have been games where you're up against it, the other team's just better than you on the day for whatever reason, but you somehow get something out of it. And again, it almost feels like we're talking here, and it's been like this since this game finished. Everybody's forgetting. This is a point. You've got a point at Anfield. You know, when you look at your fixtures that you still had to play, you were dreading going to Anfield, dreading it. But you know what? You got something from the game. What's not to like about that? Okay, you were 2-0 up. But again, when you think about what happened and what happened to Liverpool, you still didn't fold and lose the game. You held on because you got good players and you got a great mentality and you got a great goalkeeper. And you got some players on the field who will throw themselves in front of anything in order to get that point.
Yeah.
And that's what got you. You shouldn't forget about that or dismiss that.
Stevie Nicol, let me tell you, that is one of the greatest things you've said on this show. And I will play this back to Ian Doyle from the Liverpool Echo when he comes on the show to defend his article where he called us lucky. Lucky Arsenal, apparently, all season. That's us.
All season? Well, I think he's been wearing my sunglasses.
Stevie was wearing them. Right. Some quick questions, you guys, and we're going to get them answered by these two legends. Senderos, who still sees Drogba in his nightmares, ask Nicol who he thinks will win the title. By the way, Nicol, huh? Nicol to you. Legend here.
I kind of tells you I'm not on his Christmas card list. Listen, if somebody said to me, you can either play for Arsenal between now and the end of the season or Man City, I would say Arsenal because you've got the points. You're in pole position. All these people are saying it's in City's hands. Well, it's not really. It's in Arsenal's hands because they've got the points. So I'll take the points any day. We started off with that, and I'll say it again. I'll take the points any day of the week.
Here's a nice one from Lynn. Stephen, I have been very impressed how much praise you've given Arsenal this season. Getting a little sugar there. Okay. This one from Guna Russ. Have you enjoyed the way Arsenal have played? I think you just answered that, really.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Listen. When a team plays well, you got to say they're playing well. You know, it's always dead easy when teams are crap and you go, well, they were crap. He was crap. That's crap. But when teams play well and they've got ability and they produce it, why would you not applaud it? I mean, that's why we watch the game. We want to see good players and good football, and we want to see goals. And that's all Arsenal's done pretty much for the whole of this season. So why would you not praise it?
Well, if you can look into your crystal football for us one more time. Kev's confident and has been for most of the season. Credit to him. After seeing us under the cosh at Anfield, what does Stevie think of our chances at the Etihad and St James's Park? Some Arsenal fans are more worried about the game at Newcastle than they are at Manchester City. I'm worried about both.
Newcastle and City, without question, are the two games that will decide whether you win the title or not. I don't think the other games. I think you'll win, and I don't think the other games are. I mean, people talk about the Chelsea game. Well, Brighton. When was it? Brighton's just got beaten, drawn.
We've got two London derbies as well, Stevie. We've got Chelsea and West Ham. We've got two London derbies.
Well, Chelsea can't score a goal to save their life, so you're going to have to help them. You're going to have to stick the ball in your own net to lose against them. I think. You know, it's definitely City and Newcastle, and I'm still shocked that Newcastle are where they are, and I understand the atmosphere at Newcastle, but I don't see how you don't score, number one. And I wouldn't swap any of Newcastle's front line for any of Arsenal's front line. So, yes, I think they'll put you under pressure, but I'm not a huge fan of the front line. So I think you can go there and win. And you know they're going to go at you. And I'll tell you what, if I've got Martinelli and Saka on my team and the other team are going to be leaving gaps, I'm more than happy to take advantage of them. So, yeah, it's going to be a tough game, no question. There will be times in the game where you're under pressure. Well, guess what? It's the Premier League. There's some good teams in the Premier League. But guess what? You're as good as anybody else. So, and you're not lacking in confidence.
Yeah.
And I think when the dust settles, you'll realise you've taken a point from a game. Okay, you might have won. But how about, and I guess there's no question, Arteta is going to be talking about how well you played, how great you were when you were 2-0 up. And unfortunately, you were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. I think the Everton result and this result at Anfield, I think you're unfortunate in some ways, because I think the Everton game was a perfect storm, going to Goodison, new manager, the whole, Kevin, you know what Goodison's like when they're fired up. I mean, the atmosphere is fantastic, and for an away player, everything, it's like, the comedy shows when they have the walls coming in and on every side. That's what it's like when you're playing against Everton at Goodison when the crowd's on fire. So I just think that was a perfect storm. I thought you were unlucky there. And you showed that it was just unfortunate because you went on and won, the last 5-6 games in the trot?
Yeah.
And Liverpool, again, is a bit of an unfortunate because that little magic that Anfield has just caught fire for you at the wrong time. So you've dropped points. It kind of sounds like your fans, I know they're worried, but how about you look at the big picture? Don't look at
because we have PTSD, Stevie. We have PTSD.
Not in this crowd, not with this team. You don't.
Ask Kev. Before every game, I'm pretty much worried.
No, just look at the big picture. Don't look at two isolated incidents, Everton and Liverpool. How about the other 20? 27 games that you've outplayed the opposition.
So
Have you all
you're
of a sudden forgotten about that?
No, I haven't. But
Well,
at some
don't.
point, at this point in the season, it's kicked in. Like I just want to win. Please let it be the year that we do this, that we close the deal, that we show everybody that we're back. Because I just can't deal with the narrative if we don't. The stupid comments, the collapse, we choked. Meanwhile, here we are in an unprecedented situation, improbable. No one thought we'd be here. They didn't think we'd be here last year. But what you and Kev keep telling me is that mentally we're different this year. And that's why I should have less anxiety.
100%. I mean, look at all the big games, the supposed big games that you've had this season. You played well in them all. For 40 minutes, you completely outplayed Liverpool at Anfield. Not many teams can say that. So you got to look at the big picture.
Yeah, it's really, really hard. But I think, because we've got Newcastle coming up and Brighton and Southampton, teams that what happened last season, Kev. You know what happened. Right.
Yeah,
okay.
As Stevie said, look, I always look at the positives. I look at this team. This team have got over so many hurdles. We haven't got over every hurdle, but we've got over so many hurdles. And it's in our hands. I would rather it be in our hands than in somebody else's hands. So if we win out, we win the league. I'd prefer that than anything else.
Totally. Yeah. Okay, Stevie, I've got to ask you these quick questions, fun ones from the crowd. Who do you think's going down?
Southampton. I think Leicester will go down. I think I can't pick between Forest and Leeds.
Oh, Forest. I think Forest will survive.
Well, they're in third bottom right now. They're in third bottom right now.
I know, it's their away form is woeful, isn't it? That's what's going to be undo them. Okay, who makes it to who gets the Champions League spot, or who misses out of United, Newcastle, and Tottenham Hotspurs?
I'm going to say Spurs. You really don't know what you're going to get.
Favourite for a reason.
Well, you don't know what you're going to get. How they're sitting where they are is beyond comprehension. They've been garbage all season, but yet they're sitting there fighting it for
It's called Harry Kane. It's called Harry Kane.
No, I can't argue with that. Can't argue with that.
Okay, and also just to see here, because listen, you guys, I put these old pictures up, right? Look at this. I want everyone to see this one. Sophie Nicolaou of Liverpool. Look at those thighs there. I'm just wondering, are they up to scratch with Kev's? Not sure, but it's pretty close. I mean, look at you kids back in the day. It's 100 players who shook the cop. Look at you here as well. Look at baby Steve.
Oh, God. What?
I was going to put up the trophies you and Kev have won, but it would just take way too long and we've run out of time. Okay, so I can't do that. What you got planned on ESPN FC this week? How's the crew over there? You got to give Shaka our love. He's come on and we love him. Burley keeps dodging us. What's that about?
Oh, that's Burley, isn't it? All over.
What do you think is going to happen to Liverpool? We'll leave you with this. 2 thoughts. Closing statement from you, Stevie. Wow. What's going to happen to Liverpool? And is this a one-season wonder for Arsenal, or are we really moving in the right direction here?
No, you can't do what you've done. You can't do what you've done all season and think that it's just going to disappear next year. I mean, by looking from the outside in, it seems to me that Arsenal are looking to strengthen, which is what you do when you're at your best. You should always be looking to add a piece. Just to, number one, to get better. Number two, keeps everybody on their toes, keeps them focused on their own game, and keeps the team intact. So no, I don't see it being a one-season wonder. Listen, if they win the league this year, would I back them to win it next year? Maybe not, but they're going to be there or thereabouts. There's no way this is no Leicester. Listen, Leicester was a miracle. You know, playing the way they did. Again, perfect storm. No injuries really. Only played Saturday to Saturday for most of the season. I mean, they played with everybody behind the ball and broke on teams. I mean, to win the league doing that is incredible. But were we shocked that the following year they finished up mid-table? Not really. That's not going to happen to Arsenal. I don't see that.
And your Liverpool will be just fine next season? You think we'll be back in the game?
No, they're going to have to sign. They're going to have to sign. They're going to have to sign some strength in the middle of the park. And the one thing I can't work out is the back four. I don't think. See, this is very difficult because Liverpool won the Premier League and the Champions League with Trent Alexander as a fullback.
You're right.
Right.
So what's happened?
Well, go figure. How, you know? And it's not a surprise that it's not all of a sudden he's not a good defender. He never was a good defender. But the rest of the back line has somehow become an absolute shadow of itself. Is it a case of it's just a matter of working with them, getting George Graham in and getting George to work with them?
Oh, your midfield is shite.
That midfield, Steve.
Yeah, but I think the midfield's the obvious one. But the back line, it's very difficult to I can't get my brain around the fact that they were so good for so long and then just became a wreck. It's very difficult to understand.
So, Steve, when you look at what's happened, if you lose a yard in midfield, it's a bit easier for the opposition to play. And the way Liverpool play, if you've got that extra second of time, you can get out of the press a lot of the time. Whereas where Liverpool were at their pomp, teams just couldn't get out of the press. They were just but Trent Alexander-Arnold was virtually playing as a right midfielder.
But even when they did get through the middle, the back line was solid. Whereas now, when they get through, regardless of whether it's once or 10 times, they're all over the shop.
They're shaky.
You know, you can't just rely on the midfield's not doing the job by stopping everything and getting to the back four. Everybody's there for a reason, and we all have to do a job when asked, when called upon, and for the defence, the least amount of time that you're called upon, the better, clearly. But when you are called upon, you have to do a job. And what we've had this season in particular is when they're called upon, wow, have they gone AWOL and missing in action? So that's what I can't get my head round. And it's the same players that were so good that are now so bad. Is it a case of working with them, getting them back on, getting them back in the groove, or is it change of faces? That I don't know. I can't figure it out. The midfield, on the other hand, I think you need to change the faces.
A little bit too. When we spoke to the Anfield Wrap guys, they felt like an aging midfield, not good planning, but they also felt like maybe Klopp didn't have a plan B when you can't play his, plan A type of football.
I think that's a little harsh because when they were doing well, they signed Keita. They spent 70 million on Keita, and on the face of it, it looked like a good decision because in Germany, in the Bundesliga, the guy was scoring. The guy was scoring about 10 goals a season. I think he scored. He was in double figures, and he works hard. So when Liverpool were winning everything, they had three in the middle of the park pretty much that just worked their tail off and got the ball back and gave it to the front three. And so you can understand Klopp looking at somebody like Keita, and then of course you can understand bringing a Thiago in, Alcantara, to add a little bit more silkiness to it. So those are not crazy things to think, but both of them didn't work. And they also had a ton of young guys. You got Elliott and you got Curtis Jones as well, who, when they came on the scene, looked as though they were going to produce. And so, in some ways, they actually were. There was a bit of a plan. It just so happens that all of those names I've thrown out haven't worked out. The two young guys, Elliot and Jones, are still learning the trade pretty much. It's now questionable whether they're going to take that next step up to be, players that can consistently play and win or compete for Premier Leagues and Champions Leagues and stuff. That's now a question. And as we saw, Keita's never fit. He'll be out the door. Alcantara's never fit and can't defend to save his life. And so you're relying on Fabinho, you're relying on Henderson in particular, who it seems as though their legs have deserted them, certainly this year, but the question is whether it's next year as well. Or so I think that's a bit harsh to say that there was no plan. I think they had a plan.
Just in the games they were saying, like, what's the plan B? What's a little bit like Arteta, earlier this season, a lot of fans were like, okay, when it's not working, what's the plan B? And of course, we fans, we're football managers, aren't we? So, but clearly, Liverpool, if you'd have said to us that we'd be 500 points ahead of you this season, I would have said, you're crazy. We're going to drop you off at the asylum.
There's only 34 games.
But I have to say, we've really enjoyed
up to 500.
We've really enjoyed your season this year. You've been lovely on the show today, but it's been lovely, I have to say. Super Kev, why don't you take us out and close the show? And is there anything you want to say to this legend to legend, before we duck out?
Listen, I love the conversation. I love Stevie.
Brilliant.
Disagreeing with me, because we always disagree on something. That's good. But it's nice to hear Stevie talk so glowingly about Arsenal, because he's right. Arsenal have a team to be proud of. They have got over a lot of the hurdles, and having the points in the bag is a lot more important than playing catch up, let me tell you. So thanks to that legend down there, Stevie Nicol, for giving up his time to us. Really appreciate you, Steve. Thank you very much. Please say hello to all the guys, Shaka and Burls and everybody. And we thank you so much. For you, Sophie, thanks again. Organising another great show, great legend to come on, especially after the game yesterday. And to you, the people who are watching us. So, I'll salute you. I'll say, love your loved ones. Do not pass up the chance to give them a call and tell them you love them. Anyway, squaddies, at ease, and we'll see you tomorrow. At ease, squaddies.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.
All right, we'll see you later.